Basu Godin Notebook. 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 Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Basu and Godin Notebook. I'm Marc-Antoine Godin with Arpin Basu on this Friday, October 10th. Arpin, you're in Chicago now, and I'm back from Winnipeg, back in Montreal. So here we are for today's episode. I was surprised. I was about to. I think I was already on the plane or just about to take off when I saw this rumor on social media about a possible, imminent Lane Hutson contract coming up. So, were you as surprised as I was?
Yeah. Well, yes. I saw the report and then I took a nap, waiting for you to get home from Winnipeg so we could record the episode. So I think that tells you the extent to which I was expecting an imminent agreement. I was not. I felt comfortable taking a nap. It was a good nap, and so I slept fine. But listen, it's kind of normal. What I found odd is so last night in Detroit. Uh, Ken Hughes and Ken Hughes and his entourage of, Canadiens management and all the people that travel with the team. He arrived on the press box with Ryan Barnes. Ryan Barnes works for Cortex. He's their director of U.S. operations, and he has reportedly and quite evidently taken the lead, uh, taken the lead position in the contract negotiations for Lane Hutson. Now, the way the press box is set up in Detroit is it's a two-tier press box. There's an upper tier where all the reporters sit, and there's a lower tier where there are broadcasting suites and the suites for the opposing team's general manager. They walked onto the main upper tier where all the reporters are and walked the length of the press box and then went down to their box underneath. When they could have when you arrive at the press box, there's a ramp to go to the upper tier and there's a
Yeah.
ramp to go to the lower tier. They could have just gone straight to the lower tier and no one would have seen them. Well, not no one, but fewer people would have seen them than walking onto the press box where all the reporters are hanging out. So I found that odd. It was a bit of a public.
Yeah, why would
It's a
they
bit.
choose to showcase the
I
fact
don't
that
know
they're,
why. I
it's,
don't know
of
why.
course it would draw attention.
I know. So I found that strange. But anyhow, everyone saw this happen. Ryan Barnes and Ken Hughes were clearly having a discussion. Who knows what they were discussing? They could be discussing their favorite Motown tunes. I don't know. But in all likelihood, they were discussing the contract. Then on the second intermission, I don't know what happened in the first intermission, but the second intermission, I was going down to do my intermission hit for TSN, which is on that same level as the visiting GM's box. And as I went down there, Ryan Barnes was entering the Canadiens box, um, presumably to have another discussion over the intermission. So there were talks of some sort. How serious they were or whatever, I don't know, but there were talks of some sort that happened in Detroit last night. Um, it doesn't seem to have moved the needle all that much. This could be wrong in like 10 minutes, but um, things seem to be more or less status quo. And I think the one factor is that the longer this remains a thing, I kind of thought once the game started, this would die down, except this was the second game and it became this very public show of negotiation, and um, yeah, I think Lane Hudson was kind of hoping that once the game started, this wouldn't be like a public discussion anymore, and he could just focus on hockey. Uh, so if this becomes sort of a trying thing, and if this becomes something that Lane Hudson himself starts to have trouble managing, um, maybe we'll get some movement here. I don't know, but as it stands, there's no rush. There's nothing, there's no deadline for this. The deadline that already passed that we discussed, was the fact that the NHL has now outlawed the deferred payment contracts that some
Yeah.
players benefited from that manage you to somewhat artificially lower a cap hit by spreading the money out longer than the contract term. The Canadians can no longer do that. There was a report stating that the Hutson camp was not interested in that anyway, but they can't do that anymore. So to me, my sense was always that the Canadians, once the season started, didn't want to continue dealing with this, and that it was becoming a bit heavy, and that they just wanted to stop. So maybe that's the case now. Maybe it's not. I don't know. Maybe something shook loose last night in Detroit. But my impression is that not a whole lot has changed on this file, and I wouldn't say shocked, but I would say mildly surprised if a contract were agreed to during the season.
Yeah. Well, there's been so much movement contract wise that there seems to be a momentum around the league and say, oh, well, somebody signed, oh, I'm going to sign too. And there's been a
Well,
lot of
parameters
signings
are being
lately.
set.
Exactly. But
Yeah.
at this point, I'm not sure if the biggest parameter would be for Lane to show that he can take another step and be an even more dominant player. But what I
Yes.
find interesting is that, you know how players, they often say when they sign before the season, I didn't want this to be a distraction. Or after the case, they admitted that it was a distraction.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't know this for a fact because I have not been on the road for those first two games with the Canadians, and I'm not even sure that Lane would ever admit it. But you look at him play right now, and there's a bit of over eagerness in his play. It's not hesitation at all, but sometimes he doesn't move too much, and he seems to want it a bit too much at times, and he's been. It's not just that crazy goal in Toronto, the winning goal,
Mm-hmm.
where he obviously that whole fumbling and of breaking sticks and losing sticks and coming back, but generally speaking, his first two games, and it's such a small sample size, you recognize all the tools and the energy and the creativity that we've seen from him in the past. But there seems to be a little bit of yeah, it's not tentativeness because he seems to be decided to do a certain play, but he'll jump, he'll be
Seems off.
overstimulated.
He seems off.
There's something a little bit off. Yeah. So I don't know. There's a chance that he might be bothered by this. And if he is, spending the whole season with this, I'm not sure they would be beneficial for him. And at some point, he might turn to his representatives and say, you know what? I'd be better off with this load off my mind. So, in that sense, again, it's a super small sample size but before saying it's not going to happen during the season, to me, this is a
Yes.
legitimate possibility that if he feels, even if he starts playing very, very well, it might still bother him, and he could say, let's get this over with because I've got a season to play. I don't want to have to think about this.
What this reminds me of, and I agree with what you just said, that this is going to have to come from Lane. For this to get moving, Lane's going to have to step in and do something. And the last time I spoke to him about it, his position remained that I am hands off. My agents are going to deal with this. I'm not involved.
Hmm.
So if he were to get involved and say, listen, this is too much. I can't handle it. I need to focus on hockey. Let's just get this done. That would move the needle, So because I think that the two sides are pretty kind of dug in right now, and because there's no deadline, right? The deadline is like next September. It's not even next July 1st. He can't even sign an offer sheet. It's next training camp is the deadline.
Yeah.
It's far, far, far away. It could also just be, this is kind of the reality of sort of the quote unquote sophomore slump. You have an excellent, very successful rookie season. You come into the next year, you're ready to take the next step, and you have trouble meeting expectations. This happens to many players. It happened to Slavkovsky. It happens to a lot of players who come off great rookie years and their second year is a bit more difficult. The league knows you a little bit better. That would also be an explanation for why Lane Hutson has been kind of so-so through 2 games. So it could just be that. It could have nothing to do with the contract. But for sure, it seems, this situation to some extent, and they're completely different players, obviously, but it reminds me of the Jake Evans situation, right? Like it's the Canadians had made an offer to Jake Evans and they stood by their offer throughout. And it was up to Jake Evans. Trade deadline was coming. They said, listen, it's up to you. You want to stay here? This is the offer. If you want to go find elsewhere, then we can move you and best of luck to you. And the closer you got to the trade deadline, the more it became reality to Jake Evans and his wife that, okay, this is real. This is happening. We need to make a decision. And ultimately, they just took the offer and stayed. And the Canadians didn't really move a whole lot, if at all, in their position to Jake Evans. He basically took the offer that had been on the table for a long time. And so that's why it kind of reminds me, this seems like a similar situation in that sense, that I think there is an offer on the table and that they have to, the Canadians are, I think have stuck to it. It seems like it, like that's what it sounds like. And so they're going to need some movement. Ideally, in negotiation, it moves on both sides, but generally, you don't get movement without a deadline. And the Canadians got that movement because of the trade deadline last year. This deadline's far away. So I agree with you that I think at this point, it would take Lane Hutson himself kind of becoming a little bit more hands-on in this process for it to move. Because it does sound like both sides are pretty dug in, and it does sound like Lane Hudson's not particularly involved.
Yeah. But at the same time, I think that having a new spokesperson at the table
Yeah,
is a positive move.
yeah.
It could, typically it's something when there's a change of agents, whether mainly for new contract negotiations, things that they often pan out from that point on, from that
hmm
change. Uh, whether it's within the same agency or the the player decides to switch agencies and go somewhere else, but it can create a new dynamic. And obviously, Kent Hughes is speaking with agents that he knows very well because he used to be their coworker.
He co-founded the company. He
Yeah.
co yes, not just their
So
coworker. He
no.
gave
I
them their
know.
jobs. Yeah.
That's it. He used to be He used to be Ryan Barnes' boss to a certain extent.
Yes, exactly.
Um, yeah. So anyway, I think we'll see where that goes. As long as Lane's play is not affected by it, I think that people should just relax and park this for a little bit. If it comes at any point, that'd be great. But I don't think that it's something that will change unless it bothers him. I don't think that it's going to change the outcome of the season. And basically, that's what should be the focus now: is
Well,
how is
I
he
do
going to
think,
play and how the team is going to play.
yeah, and I think that's where the Canadians' focus lies. The season has started. It's an important season. There's no pressing need to get this contract done. Um, I think, I think the Canadians are comfortable letting the season play out. And the one factor I would wonder is, I don't know this to be the case, but if Lane's camp are like pressuring him to like, okay, go out and show them how much you're worth. Go out and rack up the points. Go show them how badly they need to sign you. Well, that's not a positive environment to exist in. And that could be detrimental to his performance on the ice. So I don't know that that's happening, but that is one dynamic that could exist, let's say, hypothetically,
Mm-hmm.
and would be a negative, right? I mean, that would be something that would not allow him to focus on the season, and that his priorities would be conflicted, to say the least. So let's hope that's not the case for his sake, because I don't think that, I do think that Lane does not want to be involved in this. He wants what's best for him. He wants the biggest contract he's ever going to sign, probably. It's a huge moment in his life. I don't blame him for wanting to set his family up for generations here. But the season's begun,
Yeah.
and so I think that's the Canadiens' priority right now. It's probably Lane's priority right now, and so if they find a way to make it so that this can be this can be removed from the equation, then great. But it might be best for both sides to just focus on the season right now.
All right, but let's focus on the season. There are 2 games
Yeah,
played already.
that's it. We have two regular season games,
Yeah, yeah,
and
it's funny because the outcome was totally different, but there's a it's you could argue that, you could argue they played a better game against Toronto and lost. And
totally.
if it had been a better opponent than Detroit, who completely collapsed in the second half of the game, uh,
Oh, and just kept giving them odd man rushes like left, right, and center. I mean, it's yeah.
yeah, it was they seem to be far away from the promised land, the Red Wings.
Todd McClellan was incensed. He compared them to bantam players.
Wow.
Said the things were bantam, midget, junior, pro. The things we were doing tonight, you learned a long time ago not to do. He was not happy.
No,
I think
I
at one
know.
point he said, "I'm sure." So apparently, Dylan Larkin said it's only game one. We have a lot of time to fix this. And then Todd McClellan's press conference, he said, "I'm sure the guys told you that we have a lot of time to fix this." Well, when? It's now. And so he's like, either he was listening into the scrums in the room, or he just totally nailed what his captain told reporters in the room a few minutes prior. So anyhow,
Yeah, because
but yeah, I would agree with you. I like the game in Toronto better than their game in Detroit, personally.
well, it's just that Marty talks about having a shooting mentality this season.
Hmm.
For the amount of opportunities you're given to enter the zone, and their transition's been very good. Quick counter attacks. They were dynamic, but shoot more pucks to the net, get more scoring chances overall. The high danger ones. Uh, Jakob Dobes was amazing in Detroit. I mean,
Yeah, he was
Alex
good.
DeBrincat, Alex DeBrincat must have dreamt of him. The
Yeah, a
last night.
couple of times. I mean, I do think he did look kind of. There were some moments he seemed to be fighting the puck a little bit. He seemed a tiny bit rusty, but that's nitpicking. He only gave up one goal, so it's like it's. But yeah, there were like some rebounds that I would have liked controlled better.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, he looked good. He did what he had to do. You can only play the game that's in front of you, and so. But yeah, territorially, the Red Wings had. It's kind of like what the Canadiens did in Toronto is what the Red Wings did is that they territorially they kind of had an advantage on Montreal, but they didn't really create a whole lot in terms of prime scoring chances. The Canadiens limited that, and when the Canadiens had their opportunities, they took advantage of them. And I think there are a couple that John Gibson would have liked to have had back. That Matheson goal at the end of the first period, it's a good shot. It's a nice move by Matheson. I'm not taking anything away from him, but that's a save that the Red Wings needed. This was their big offseason acquisition. This has been a hole in their organization for a while. That one hurt, and that was
The
just
juicy
after
rebound, the juicy rebound that Slav took,
that
for the
Slav
fifth goal.
took. Yeah, that was the Carrier shot. Apparently, that was not tipped. That's when you have to stop. I thought it was. I was convinced it was tipped. You actually heard. I thought I heard it being tipped in the building. Like I thought I heard the puck hit a stick.
Yeah,
And
but could it
so
have been tipped by the Detroit
the
defenseman instead
defenseman,
of Bolduc?
maybe, but I thought I heard the sound of a stick hitting a puck. Maybe it was a pad. Maybe
No.
it was an elbow pad or something, possibly. But anyhow, it didn't seem to change direction that drastically.
Mm.
Either way, it's a goal you'd like to stop. So yeah, tough for them. But the Canadians. The Bolduc goal was gorgeous. Like just the whole sequence of Bolduc going back, passing it to Matheson, Matheson to Gallagher, Bolduc, Gallagher area pass, one touch, saucer into space. Bolduc skates right into it, breakaway. I don't think Gallagher appreciated the tone of my question when I was like, "Where did that come from?" It's not particularly something that's in your golf bag usually. Um,
Ouch.
well, it's like, I was like, how did I put it? I think I said, I didn't know you had a one-touch saucer area pass in your arsenal. He's like, well, if I could see the play, I'll make it. It's just a question of seeing it. And I saw that one. So
Yeah.
he didn't take offense, gladly. I think he knows I mean well. But yeah,
But there's
it was,
plenty.
it's,
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
well, I mean, what has been the issue for the Canadians, especially, well, not most of last season, right? That when the Suzuki line is not on the ice, there's no offense happening. Well, the Suzuki line has not scored a 5-on-5 yet. Bolduc has 2 goals. Kapanen has 2 goals. Those are the two middle six lines that were like the question marks, sort of a mishmash of combination of players that we were wondering, how's this going to work? What's that going to look like? You change the dock line that you started camp with. You break up Gallagher from Evans and Anderson. And honestly, like Gallagher and Bolduc look like a great fit
Yeah.
for Doc, who he's looked fine. He's looked okay, but not as good as he looked in training camp. It seems like once the speed went up a level, he's having trouble kicking his speed up a level, and I think that's going to take some time. But um, he's been okay. He's been fine. I think he's made a number over the 2 games. I think he's made a number of like good defensive plays, which I think is encouraging. It's something that he talked about being a priority for him. So that's good. But I think the profile of Gallagher and Bolduc on his line is a good thing. Like these straight line, hardworking, forechecking guys who can go recover pucks, create offensive zone time for Doc to operate. I mean, that line looks like it has some promise, and the other line looks like it has a lot of promise. Newhook, Kapanen. Well, actually, I should share a story about Kapanen, but the Newhook, Kapanen, Demidov line, I think looks like it has a lot of potential. And so I'm saying Kapanen on purpose. So Toronto, we have a hotel avail before the game. We do our avail, and Kapanen didn't speak, but then Marty's doing his like broadcaster chat, right? He's talking to the Hockey Night people, he's talking to TVA people, and I'm leaving, and he's like, Arpit. And I was like, oh, what did I do? Like, yeah, what? Yes? Can I help you? Like, why do you say Kapanen? You keep throwing me off every time you say his name. I was like, I thought that's how you pronounce his name. And he's like, no, and Felix Seguin of TVL was there. And I think he makes a point of going to every player and say, how do you want your name to be said? And he insists that it's Kapanen. That
Okay.
Kapanen himself said, I'd like it to be Kapanen. So that's been settled.
Good.
Now on
Sounds
it's Kapanen. But yeah, because I was like, well, it's the same thing as Demidov, right? He's like, what, Demidov? No, it's Demidov. I'm like, no, this for sure. Demidov said, it's Ivan Demidov. That's how you say his name. And then Marty just kind of had a blank. So he's like, yeah, it's Demi. It's Cappy and Demi. I don't have that problem.
Of course. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
it. That's how they solve all their issues is
that's
by
it, exactly.
those silly nicknames. Yeah.
Hmm. So
Right.
anyhow,
So
I'm gonna say Kapanen from now on, which is what I'm naturally inclined to say. But that line looks great. I mean, honestly,
mhm.
that's both games. Line had dangerous moments. It's got a lot of speed. I thought Demidov played within himself in both games. He didn't go looking for, you remember beginning of season last year, what it was like every time Lane Hutson touched the puck?
Yeah.
It was a circus. It was like going to the circus, not in a negative way. It was just fun. It was just fun things happening everywhere. You could go there, there, there. And Demidov just seems uh, pretty committed to not doing that. To not like, I'm not going to make something shiny happen every time I touch the puck. And I think Marty's been pretty impressed with his willingness or his restraint to like be able to just play smart and wait for his opportunities.
He was I I'm thinking of a shift in the middle of the second period against Detroit where, you know, Kapanen had entered the zone and was doing a first wave of attack, and then the puck went out, and Demidov had an amazing back check in the neutral zone, took the puck away,
Hmm.
and basically it enabled the team to reload and start another wave of attack, which I think he did the zone entry by himself, and they established another offensive sequence. But it was
Right.
all based on him pressuring the wings
Back
player
pressure.
in the neutral zone, getting the puck away from him, and you know the other way it goes. So it was very responsible hockey, and good offense, good defense turning into good offense. That was a great example there. So even though it's right now, it's not very flashy at 5-on-5. The points are not necessarily there. He's not. It's not as if he's invisible, overmatched, or anything. You don't
Hmm.
have. You should not just look at the score sheet. Just if you look at the game and you pay attention, he's doing a lot of good things. But I mean, I didn't mean to go there today, but the surprise on that line continues to be Kapanen. He's
Kapanen.
all right. Okay, you know what, you could make me repeat stuff in English because I'm a French guy, but if you start correcting
Like,
my Finnish too, it's going to be a long day.
yeah. Yeah, yeah, no, he's definitely the revelation though. I mean, he's just way more noticeable offensively than he's ever been.
Yeah,
And that is, he's making plays in the offensive zone. You can watch his confidence grow with every shift. He's not physically intimidated. He's not intimidated with the puck. He's he looks like an NHL player. Like and not just an NHL player who's just doing the right things and he's in the right spots and he's responsible and this, like he's positionally sound, he's very smart, this and that. No, he is all that, but he's like making plays in the offensive zone. He's doing things that lead to offense, and you notice him regularly throughout the game that when he's beating a guy along the wall or he's taking the puck to the middle of the ice or he's doing things that 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 are dangerous, and I think the opposite of what we saw from him last season as a rookie, obviously, but it's everything he did was safe, and now he's doing things that are dangerous to the opposing team and somewhat risky for the Canadians. Like in order to generate some offense, there is an element of risk that you need in your game, and he's showing a willingness to do that. So um,
and he
I
doesn't
guess
shy away from contact. It's
not at
really
all.
where
No.
he takes ownership of a very favorable build, and if he needs to go in a battle for the puck, or he's got the puck and he's skating close to the wall, and while he's going to find that corridor there, and he's going to skate through a guy that wants to hit him or something, but he
Hmm.
doesn't he doesn't shy away from that part of the game. I think that all the teachings that he got from Olli Jokinen last year really prepared him for that. Plus, finishing the season in Montreal and then in Laval, he comes back with being a lot more comfortable and aware of the type of game that is played here and that he needs to play. So there's a great improvement in that part of the game.
Yeah, and last night he and Newhook played more on the penalty kill than Anderson and Evans. They got more time. And now maybe that just means they were stuck in their zone more, but um, I don't think they're going to supplant them as the number one pairing, but they're doing well in that phase of the game as well. Like it's really not. It's looked pretty smooth to the penalty kill. I guess the one thing with Demidov, and I think by extension with Line through two games, is how little the second unit is getting on the ice on the power play.
Yeah,
I'm a little surprised by that. I really thought it would be a more even split. Marty is really leaning on that top unit more than I thought he would. So I guess that's the one thing I'd like to see a change in because you want to see Demidov get some touches on the power play for sure. Line A, if he's not going to get touches on the power play, then what's he even doing in the lineup? I mean, it's like it's there's you need to get him some reps on the power play, and I thought it would be a much more even split. Like last night, just for example, Suzuki played 256 on the power play, and Doc was at 110. So
yeah,
it's not an even split. It's like so it's a lot less even than I thought. Now it's only two games in. Maybe some of that is circumstantial. I don't know. But so far through 2 games, it's not the PP1 and PP2 have not been as evenly split as I thought it would be.
No, but I mean, over 2 games and with few power plays, also, it could just be that the first unit, without scoring a goal, if it spends a lot of time in the O zone just having possession and circling the puck around, you won't change.
Well, I think
So
that happened in Toronto. I think there was one power play where PP1 spent the entire power play in the offensive zone, right? Like they basically spent
well,
2 minutes in the offensive zone.
mhm.
But last night there were I thought there were opportunities for PP2 to get out there, and they didn't. And frankly, I would start some power plays with power play two occasionally. Like if power play two hasn't gotten
Absolutely.
their time yet, send them out to start it. And give them a chance to do that. And so, because yeah, in Toronto, yeah, it was in Toronto because in Toronto, let's see, Suzuki played 303 on the power play and Doc played 46 seconds. So through 2 games, it's a wide disparity. And frankly, they shouldn't do anything to keep Patrick Laine happy. Don't get this wrong, but I mean, if you want to keep him happy, playing on a fourth line essentially, you got to give him some. You got to give him his time on the power play where he feels he can contribute. Like that's where he's the most significant contributor to this team. Demidov can contribute in other ways, but him too. You want him to get those puck touches that should translate to his 5-on-5 play if he makes some plays on the power play, builds some confidence. So that's, I guess, the one quibble I would have through 2 games is I'd like to see the second unit get more time.
Yeah, but you talk about Line playing on the fourth line. I don't want to reopen that debate again about who's the fourth line and who's on the second line and whatnot. But you see how, well, obviously in a quote unquote blowout game, Canadians convincingly won in Detroit. That enabled Martin Saint Louis to really roll his four lines effectively. But I think there's a point there where that's what he wants to do, both on offense and also on the blue line. Being able to not necessarily play his third pairing as much as the top two pairings. That's not the case, but give them at least a little bit more minutes. We saw that in Detroit, but the four lines up front. I mean, I think it was Josh Anderson who ended up with the highest time on ice, and
Yeah.
it was obviously with the late push in Detroit that got a little bit off balance, but I think that was an overall there's an effort there to make sure that everybody's going to get their time. So for Line to play with Evans and Anderson, I wouldn't be too worried. He might not get to 18 minutes very often, but he's going to get his fair share of action 5-on-5, and it was pretty. I don't know how much weight to put in that, but I mean, both Martin Saint Louis and Kent Hughes said that the last 2 preseason games were the best 5-on-5 games that they had seen from Patrick Laine so far since he's been playing for the Canadians. To which extent has he really continued on that trend in those first regular season games? I don't know, but he has to be playable 5-on-5, but the rest is, I'll agree with you on that, is that once the power play is out there, you need a shot.
Well,
It's
you
as
need to you
simple
need to
as
get him
that.
on the ice. You need to get
Yeah.
him and Demidov need to get on the ice. That's my only point. And frankly, like if you're Patrick Laine, it's everything you said I agree with, but if you're Patrick Laine and you look at your centerman and it's Jake Evans, I love Jake Evans. I'm sure Patrick Laine loves Jake Evans, but he's a fourth line profile center, and like that's just the reality of it. He's not playing with an offensively gifted centerman. That's the point. And so he looks at that and he's like, I'm not in an offensive role. I'm not being given time with someone who's going to set me up for goals. That's all I mean. It's the
Hmm.
fourth line, second line. I agree. They're all going to play pretty much the same. And that's the point. But of all the centers on the team, and you can even throw Kapanen into the mix at this point, of all the centers on the team, the least offensively gifted one is Evans, and that's his
Yeah.
centerman. So it's like
And
that's
it's a
just
lot of
reality.
defensive starts and things like
Yeah,
that. So yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
So
for sure. Um, okay, so listen, I remember you said, I think it was in our last episode, you said we should not worry too much
It
about
was
the
in the
fact
mailbag.
that it was in the mailbag. That's it. That's Dobson and Bolduc, even though they had so-so camps, we shouldn't worry too much about it. If after the first 3 games they continue on that trend, then it might, maybe it's more serious. It did not take a week because you look at those first 2 games, both
Mhm.
Bolduc and Dobson have looked so much better than they did in training camp, and I think that the margin is even greater for Dobson, who was underwhelming at camp. But now you saw in those first 2 games a guy who's able to defend, right? It's not
Yes.
and he's that legitimate first pairing guy. I know that some people will criticize the back check on the Matthews empty net goal. Fine, I don't care. The rest of the time, the rest of the game, he's been involved. He's been there. He's been super effective. Uh, and Bolduc, man, he's got 2 goals, but he could have 3, if not 4. So it's
I
very
remain
encouraging
convinced
to
he
see
got.
those guys.
I
Yeah,
remain convinced he scored that goal. That's yeah,
but it's
yeah.
yeah. So yeah, and I think for Dobson in particular, I look at the because you mentioned the chemistry between Bolduc and Gallagher, so it's I won't extend on that. But
Hmm.
for Dobson and Matheson playing together, I think that pairing is really finding his footing together. They've been to complement each other very very well. Matheson's playing very good hockey. He's been steady since day one of camp. He's had a tremendous camp. Seems to continue in that trend. But we finally see from Dobson. I mean, there was just these little subtle plays. There was a play against Detroit where he stood his ground in front of the net and deflected what was meant to be like a shot pass or a pass for Rasmussen that would have been a goal if it had not been deflected away by Dobson. And that was just before Matheson scored at the end of the second period. So when Suzuki and Matheson went the other way, but it was just a smart defensive play, and it's very encouraging. So he's putting doubts away very early on in the season, and I think it's the best way to start his Montreal Canadiens career.
Yeah, he's doing. Yeah, I mean, he's playing. The way we described him last episode is what you're seeing, right? It's just this constant series of plays that contribute to the puck not being in your end and being in the other end. And I think we're seeing it. It's, you know, I think the range that Marty described when he first put them together and first explained the thinking behind it, Matheson's feet, Dobson's feet, but also combine that with his reach and his long stick. Like they cover a lot of ground. This focus on pressuring higher up the ice, pressuring the neutral zone, preventing teams from even entering their zone. Those two are well suited to doing that. And yeah, I mean, Dobson, so far so good for sure. And good for him. After the game in Toronto, he mentioned how throughout like he reminded me personally that he'd only played one preseason game with Matheson, that he got hurt, so he started missing preseason games. I think the one he played after Matheson didn't play or something like that. Like they only played
Mm.
one game together in the preseason. So throughout that game in Toronto, they were constantly talking and just trying to figure out like what had just happened. They were breaking down every shift when they got to the bench. When you were there, how hard do I have to pass it here? Where are you heading when the puck is here? Like there was all this learning going on between shifts about how each other play. So in theory, that pairing should only get better with time as they become more familiar with each other and their strengths and like um not only did Matheson score that goal, but he made that pass to Gallagher that led to his one touch saucer into space to Bolduc, which was a great pass. That's head up, looked bang on the tape. Gallagher didn't even have to stop the puck. The pass was so good. So yeah, and that pairings look good so far. And I think the theory behind it is starting to show itself as to why why they were put together to begin with. I don't know if it was everyone's. I would have put Gooley with Dobson and tried Matheson with Hutson. I think other people would have put like Hutson with Dobson or whatever or whatever
Hutson would
combination.
no. Yeah,
I think
maybe.
some people would have thought that could
Yeah.
work. I mean, if they didn't need Hutson on the right side, that would have been something worth trying. But whatever combination you came up with, this was not the most obvious one. But I kind of like the theory behind it. And so far it's worked. It doesn't mean it's going to work forever, and it's only 2 games, but yeah, he's created Noah Dobson's first impression, I think, is very strong. And let's see. I mean, he's similar to Matheson in the sense that he'll just impress you with a lot of impressive play and a lot of steady play and getting points and everything, and then he'll have a brain cramp, he'll give up a goal, he's going to look really bad on a goal against at some point this season. I can almost guarantee it. So I just hope that people kind of put that mistake and those mistakes within the greater context of everything he contributes, much like Matheson, and so hopefully that's, for his sake at least, that context is able to be maintained, and maybe he can kind of increase the ratio of good play to bad mistake that he had last season on Long Island.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the argument of saying, well, don't focus on the bad, just consider the good, because the good overrules the bad in his
Yeah,
case. And yeah, for sure.
but he's rocking like an expected goal percentage of nearly 70%. He's at 68.58% through 2 games.
Oh, you want to go into expected goals, because the team as a team, the
Oh,
expected
well,
goals are not
well, because
great.
last night didn't help. Like last night they were protecting a 5-1 lead for a good chunk of that game, and I think that
Mm-hmm.
that skewed the numbers last night, for sure. Like, through 2 games, Josh Anderson is sporting a 17.8% expected goal percentage. So I don't think that's going to stay the same. But I'm just saying that it's somewhat reflect, especially on like the only people above 50% on the team are the Suzuki line, Matheson, and Dobson.
Yeah.
Which is another interesting development, by the way, is that you finished last season, and the last we heard from an opposing coach was Spencer Carberry talking about when they get Hutson out there with that Suzuki line. When they get Hutson out there with that Suzuki line, it's really like they had the game plan for that. Like
Yeah.
that was something that was a problem for Washington, that they had to stop that. If they stopped that, they won the series. That was basically, and they still couldn't really, they had to mitigate it at least. Um, this year we haven't, through 2 games, it hasn't been so heavily Lane Hutson behind Nick Suzuki. It's been a pretty even split, if not somewhat skewed towards Dobson and Matheson getting that time behind the Suzuki line. I mean, through 2 games,
It's very, very well balanced.
it's very
Um.
balanced. Yeah,
Oh yeah,
it's
it's pretty much the same
it's
amount of
actually
time.
Matheson. It's actually Matheson who's got the most minutes at 5-on-5. But yeah, it's Matheson 13:37, Hutson 12:51, Dobson 12:49. So and then
It's
Gooley
the same.
9:13. Yeah,
It's not even a
it's
shift.
basically the same. But last year it's not even a shift. But last year it was no one was close to Hutson.
Yeah.
Hutson was getting the bulk of the shifts with Suzuki, and so um,
I think it's great for Dobson. I think that it's putting him in a situation where he can provide the Canadians with his best hockey. It's a good way to insert him into the team's dynamics, and it shows also the fact that the team is not a one trick pony, and they don't have one good solution. So if they have two potent solutions to go with the top line, then it becomes even more complicated for the Spencer Carberries of the world. So that's what I would encourage them to explore, that, knowing
yeah,
that Suzuki with Hutson, we know that it works, and they're going to nurture that over the course of the season. But you've got that other option too that creates a different puzzle altogether. So it makes for a very dynamic blue line. And I think after the game yesterday, it was Dylan Larkin who was talking about how offensive minded the Canadians are now,
Mm-hmm.
and having that type of glue line now is it only reaffirms that more stronger. So it's
I,
it's
I would just point out though that through 2 games, Suzuki's numbers with Matheson and Dobson behind him are far, far better than they are with Hutson behind him. Like far better.
do you
Two
think it's
games,
got to do with the
small
fact that
sample.
we've noticed that Lane is probably not entirely up to his last
Well,
season
I know it, but I also think
play?
it has to do somewhat, and this is no knock on Caden Gooley. Um, but the Dobson pairing, you have two offensive guys. You have two guys that are skilled behind you. Whereas if it's Hutson and Gooley out there, and Gooley, I'm not saying he doesn't have any skill, but he's not an offensively geared defenseman. So you have Hutson back there, and then you have a more defensive guy. So I think that also changes the dynamic somewhat and makes the calculus a little different. But like it's drastically different through 2 games. I mean, if you want to talk expected goals, like Suzuki and Dobson are at 85%. Suzuki and Matheson are at 77%. Suzuki and Hutson are at 34%. So it's the minutes are being doled out evenly, but the performance is not exactly in the same ballpark.
Yeah. Um, I just wanted to, since we were talking about the two newbies, Dobson and Bolduc, I just wanted to switch back to Bolduc for a second, just to notice how how Marty mentions that how he wants his players to play a direct game. It's
Yeah.
so nice to see a guy who has the speed and the shot to go with that direct instinct, because and that's why I think that he and Gallagher complement each other so well. But
Hmm.
you look at the goal that he scored in Toronto, that was because he went he almost, we could say almost that he crashed the net, but he went directly to the net.
Yeah.
He was in front of in the middle of three Red Wings players when he got that pass from Gallagher yesterday.
He skated right by all three of them.
Absolutely.
They just watched him go by him.
And there was, and also it's the direct game, yes, of not being afraid to go, between the dots and attacking in the middle of the ice, but there's also the pressure. There was a moment in the game against Detroit where he forechecked on Travis Hamonic, stole the puck away from him. Hamonic
Hmm.
is not an everyday player
I
anymore.
don't think he. I think he was out of the lineup at practice today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he took the puck away from him, and it basically set the whole offensive sequence that led to the fourth goal. And
Mm.
that starts with good forecheck. So you got a guy that really brings you many of those elements that offensively Martin St. Louis is looking for. It's the early
And he's
returns
only
on that trade are
well,
pretty
yeah, and he's only going to
encouraging.
get. The thing is, he's only going to get better. Like you can't tell me that Martin's not going to start having little meetings with him every now and then and pull him aside into the video room and say, "You see, when you did this, you could have done this." That's going to start to happen, and that's only going to probably make him better because I think um, Jim Montgomery is a very similarly minded guy to Marty, and sort of the way he responded to Jim Montgomery would suggest to me that he's going to respond well to Marty as well. And so that's what we're seeing through 2 games and what we saw. I think now he's at 15 goals in his last 28 regular season games since the Four Nations break ended. Um, which is like a 40 goal pace, right? Like it's really extraordinary. So, and I honestly think like as the season goes along, the more exposure he gets to Marty and the more time that Marty has to spend with individual players, including him,
Mhm.
I only expect him to get better. But he's looked really good. He's looked really good. But
Logan
yeah,
Mayu made Logan Mayu made his Blues debut. First game, 14 minutes, something like that, 14,
I mean, it'll
12.
take him more. He's a defenseman. They're
Yeah.
going to work with him. It's going to take him some more time. Did I tell? Well, yeah, I didn't. I think I told you off air. I don't know if I mentioned it on the show, but Bolduc after the Toronto game, he was doing these scrums, and I was talking to Dobson primarily, but Matheson and Dobson, I was kind of focusing on them, and but he was still hanging around, so I got him at the end. I'm like, sorry to make you repeat, but what it's like to score your first goal for the Canadians, boyhood, blah blah blah, boyhood dream and all this stuff. And then towards the end of that, I kind of picked up on the conversation we had on the podcast. I was like, "What do you think of your training camp?" And he kind of knew that because I was asking the question. I mentioned this on TSN last night, if anyone watched that, but he kind of could tell that I was kind of judging his training camp by just asking the question. It was pretty clear that I didn't think it was all that great.
You were
But
leading
then
the witness.
yes, that's no, I wasn't leading the witness. I asked what he thought of his training camp. It was a very straight question. I didn't say, "Did you think you had a bad training camp?" I didn't say that. I was like,
Okay.
"What did you think of your training camp?" And so he was like, "Yeah, I'm not really worried about that." He's like, "I'm at a stage in my career. I know I can play in this league. I was just getting ready for the regular season. I wasn't worried about training camp." I was like, oh, "Okay, good answer. Whatever." And then I was and walked away, and it's like, "Stage of your career? The hell are you talking about? You're 22 years old. You barely, you know, you've had like a good half season in the NHL. Like, I mean, I don't know what stage of your career you think you're at, but
He's a
proof's in the
second year
proof.
veteran.
His proof is in the pudding. I mean, he's ready for the regular season, and
Yeah.
so
He
yeah,
is.
he wasn't ready. He wasn't too worried about a so-so training camp, and now the games count, and he's showing that they count. Good for him.
It's yeah. It's a very nice addition. I'm still trying to figure out as I discover him in that new uniform in this new environment what could be a ceiling. It's not clear, but there's a it seems like it's going to be uh, a positive outcome no matter what. There's only he suggests only good things for the future.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
because yeah, and he doesn't seem to be just a guy that says I want to score, I want to score. He does a lot of other things too, but he drives offense a great deal, and it's funny because right now you've got a chemistry between the two wingers, and it allows Doc to be you know lurking in the back a little bit, being trying to be more responsible defensively, being in F3 a lot of
Well,
the times,
it
but
allows him
just
to get up to speed.
yeah.
It gives him a
But
chance to get up to speed.
I love their forecheck. I love the way that they transition quickly. Also, no, it's a very good line. There's a good balance going on right now. That's
Yeah,
it's good to
yeah,
go.
yeah.
I would
So let's see.
yeah.
See how it goes. But I think, when we're speaking about Dobson and Matheson, like, I think we wanted to bring up what this development might mean for Matheson. Now it's very early in the season. All of this needs that caveat. But, through two games, he's in a top pairing role. He's playing with an offensive guy. He's seemingly, even though he's not on a power play unit, he's going to be put into, and we just mentioned the usage that they're getting with Suzuki and how effective that usage has been. Matheson's being put in a position where he can produce offense again. And obviously, that goal at the end of the first last night was a huge goal. Really gave the Canadians the momentum and really killed the Red Wings. I mean, they went to the first intermission and they were basically dead. Um, he's in a contract year. His future is up in the air with this organization. So whether he signs in Montreal or not, him being put in a position to produce offense helps him. But does it help him enough? And if this pairing continues to be a successful pairing and you have one of them signed for 8 years, do you become tempted to sign the other one and be like, let's run with this pairing for the next 3 years or 4 years or whatever it is? It's
Yeah,
especially with
they don't have
especially
the same
with
age though.
no, they don't have the same age, but the other factor in there is that you don't know when or if David Reinbacher will be a top four defenseman on your team. Now, I still think he will be. When will that happen? I can't say that with any degree of assuredness. Will it be next year? Maybe. Probably not. Will it be the year after? maybe more likely the year after that he's a top four guy playing heavy minutes.
Hmm.
Like it's not that he's gonna make the NHL in 2 years, but like that he's that guy that you want him at his ceiling. And so because of how well this is going, and if it continues going this well, does it just change the dynamic of how the Canadians view this player and his importance to their project in the short term enough to um, consider giving him a relatively like a fair contract, like a relatively well-paying contract? Like, I don't know, let's say 4 times 6. Would you do that for him? Like, I don't know. It's would he do that? I don't even know in the current cap environment, would he do that? But
Mm.
I think if this goes for another month or two and this pairing proves itself to be an effective pairing and they get a lot of minutes and they play in a lot of important situations, I think this is a conversation that's going to have to start happening within the Canadians management at some point.
Yeah, well, the more he's put into offensive situations, if he can manage to rack up points without any power play time, then it becomes a very attractive option for everybody.
Yeah.
Um, Plus, I mean, his
No.
defensive game is right there. I can't remember which Maple Leafs player it was, but he back checked so effortlessly to kill what looked like a potential breakaway.
Hmm.
And I mean, he's the defense is there right now. So um, I don't. It could maybe that it would be a team getting him more than four times 6, probably. But it's always just a matter of where do you want to be?
Yeah.
How comfortable are you in the current situation? It seems like a very reasonable contract. I'm not sure that it's the best one that you could get out there, but one thing's for sure is that the 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 better he plays, and if he continues to play well, he's favored not only by that, but by each passing week where Reinbacher is not a dominant defenseman in the AHL. Right now, he's not even playing.
Mm.
So, because the situation of those two guys remain, I think, somewhat tied together. So, and it would be a mistake to say, well, our hope is that Reinbacher is going to be that guy. You cannot move away from a guy who's part of the solution right now and who's an important part of your team in the hope that the other guy will replace it. He, Reinbacher has to show that he's ready to do that job. You cannot move
Can't
away from
assume it. You can't
Matheson
assume it.
before. You can't
Yeah.
because it might not happen, or it
They might
might
not.
take, or it might take way too many years. So
Well, the dynamic that I think helps Matheson in this situation, because he has made it clear and he has never wavered from the fact that he would like to stay in Montreal, the dynamic that helps him is that if this pairing continues to play at a very high level and their importance to the team continues to grow, um, the pressure doesn't come from Matheson. The pressure comes from the room on management to get this
yeah,
taken care of. The more that they kind of ingrain themselves in the DNA of the team and the more that they're sent out, late in games, down a goal, late in games, up a goal, important situations, and the more that they become trusted by all their teammates, if the team turns and looks and like this is good, like we should maintain this. This is a good thing. The pressure increases on Ken Hughes and Jeff Gordon to kind of to take that into account, to take into account that this pairing has the room's trust, and there's value to that, and um, that we're not there yet. But if we reach
no,
if we reach the Olympic break and they're playing at a similar level to what they've done through 2 games, which is obviously a big leap, but if that happens, not only does Matheson increase his own leverage and his own bargaining power with both the Canadians and with the rest of the league, but the dynamic shifts to where Canadians management will feel that pressure from their captain. I would imagine Ken Hughes speaks with Nick Suzuki pretty regularly, like it's and gets the pulse of what's going on the team, and Nick is pretty honest with him. And so if one of those conversations happens and Ken Hughes is like, Mike's coming up on a contract year. Like, what are you guys thinking? And, if he ever discusses it with him, which I don't know if he would, but I wouldn't put it past Nick to bring it up himself and be like, hey, what's going on with Mike's contract? He's pretty good. Like it's like we could use that guy. What's happening here?
You think? I'm not sure if it's Nick's style to do that.
Well, he went up to his GM and said, don't trade any of our guys. He took
Well,
the
it's not.
initiative to
It's
do
not the
that.
same. It's not the same. Then
I
in
don't think it's that different.
well, an individual versus a group. Yeah, I think it's different. Yeah.
No, he was lobbying for Dvorak and Armia basically, and making sure, and Evans at the time he wasn't signed, but he was lobbying for individual players. We all knew who they were: it was Savard, Dvorak, Armia,
Mm-hmm.
Evans. Basically said, don't trade those guys. That took some balls, honestly. Like it's not everyone does that. Not every captain is comfortable going to their GM, knocking on his office door, and being like, "This is how I feel," and then taking a challenge from the GM and then going out and proving it. Like it's
No, I
I
understand your point, but it's to me the gesture from last year was more. Uh, uh, it was more like a statement to say we believe in the team as a whole, and together in our current iteration, we can make the playoffs. And it's
my point
almost
is
like
that my point is
just watch me. Whereas
I know, but my
with
point is that
Matheson,
we don't know that that's the only time that happened. That's all I'm saying. It's that we know that
no,
it happened that time
mm-hmm.
because Nick said so, which was another ballsy thing to do. Not only did he do it, he came out and said it publicly. Now,
Yeah,
he didn't just come out and say it. I asked him, is that something you would tell your GM? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, is it something you've told your GM? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, when? Like, I had to pull it out of him, but he still said it, like he still came out publicly and said, like, I went to the GM and said, don't touch our team.
yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it would be inappropriate, but I wouldn't, or maybe it wouldn't be like what's going on with the contract talks, but it could be formed as, Mike's contract's coming up and he's really important to what we're doing here, kind of thing. Like,
Yeah.
just so you know, the guys feel he's really important to what we're doing here. So I don't know what you're doing with him, but from our point of view, this is how we see it, kind of thing.
Well, look, whether it's the Canadians or another team, one thing I've always thought is that Matheson, with the level of physical conditioning that he's got, even though he's 31 years old, he's one of those guys that you can bank that he's going to remain productive and at the level that you're expecting from him for a long time. So it would be, you were talking about 4 times 6. I don't know how
I don't know
long
if he
term
would
they
take
would
that.
be. I don't know
I don't know if he would
how
take
yeah,
that. I'm throwing out a number off the top of my head, frankly.
sure. But I think that a team would be comfortable giving him years because he's giving him term because he's got, I think, the athleticism to back it up.
Yeah,
But at the
totally.
same, and this is something also the Canadians value. He's probably like the fittest guy on the team,
Hmm.
or he's right up there, and he's a veteran, and they don't have too many of them at this
And he's
point.
and he's and he's a Montreal guy. He's a
He's a
Quebec
local
guy.
guy.
He's a
Yeah,
local
yeah, yeah,
guy. He speaks both languages.
yeah,
He's everything you want from that perspective. And on the
yeah.
ice, we'll see. It's 2 games again, but this is, last year Hudson's arrival put him in like a secondary role, but so far, and it doesn't seem like this. It's one thing to look at 2 games and be like, oh, this is going to happen the rest of the season. Most of the time, that's garbage. But these are 2 guys that were put together on day one of camp. It's clearly was in the coaching staff's long-term plan to like, this is what we want to see. So far, it's worked. Maybe it won't long term, but if they continue getting consistent usage behind Suzuki's line, uh, it changes a lot. It changes how you view the player in a big way to
Yeah.
the role he had last year.
Absolutely, and the onus is on both guys, both him and Dobson, when they're facing top competition, because they will have shifts where you could feel as though they're going to be more on the defensive mission. It's on both of them. So it's not like there's one offensive guy, one defensive guy. It'll be on both of them to show that they can defend and be and make sure that they turn the table and make sure that they get the puck out quickly and they get the puck going the other way. But it's right now. I agree with you when you mentioned earlier that there could have been a scenario where Dobson was playing with Hutson. If that had been the case, then you would have had Matheson in a. No, sorry, you didn't. You didn't say that. You didn't. Yeah, you
Goalie
did
with
say that.
Dobson. I did say that, but really goalie with Dobson is what we
It
would. It
would
would
have
have been
made more
Hutson,
sense.
Matheson. Yeah, it
Yeah,
would have
yeah,
been
yeah.
Matheson. Just because Matheson and Goalie haven't looked good on the right side. I don't think they can play either guy on the right side. Goalie could, I
No,
suppose, but Goalie looked fine. But I think they didn't like it. He was getting hit too much on the right side.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Last topic before we wrap it up. It's also a news tidbit from today. It was announced that by Bell Media that they had agreed to a new deal with the Montreal Canadiens for the regional TV broadcast contract.
Mm-hmm.
So starting next year, TSN is going to air 50 games of the Montreal Canadiens based on the regional contract, and RDS is going to have 45. So I think good news for them. But RDS is currently under for the regional broadcast, they're presenting 60 games, so they will go from 60 to 45. We
Yeah.
don't know yet who's going to pick up the slack on the remaining games. Plus, don't forget that the schedule is going from 82 to 84 games next season.
Mm-hmm.
The other games that are part of the national contracts that has not been sorted out in French yet, but it looks as though RDS is diminishing a little bit his commitment. I don't know if it's going to be favorable to TVA Sport or if there's going to be a third player, but it looks as though there's probably going to be a streaming platform involved in some capacity. Probably Prime. I don't know.
Well, it's going to be something, and Jeff Molson hinted at it. We talked about it the day we did
Mm.
the golf tournament episode. I find it funny that you informed me of this. I'm actually on the TSN broadcast, and I didn't even know about it. I didn't get the press release from Bell Media. I'm on the show. They didn't
Yeah,
let
well,
me
it's good
know.
news for you, buddy.
Yeah, that's it.
Good 50
I
games.
just
That's a lot of Basu notebook. You'll need to
That's a
buy
lot of
more
ARPAN.
notebooks because
That's a
your
lot of
notebook
ARPAN
is
notebook. Yeah.
yeah, you're shedding those notebooks
But it
everywhere now.
is, I do agree that now we have, yes, it's just a lot. It's a lot of notebooking. I have
Uh-huh.
a podcast, everything. So, what is interesting is now we have a concrete number of games that are going to be on regional television. I think the games on national television don't really change in the new, at least not in the new Rogers deal. I know that the French side of that has not been settled and it still remains to be negotiated. And who knows what TVA Spal is going to do. They are not on a steady financial footing, let's say. Like, I mean, it's not really, they're not in a position of strength. Um, and so, yeah, it's going to be interesting. Like already we see, just in our Substack chat, all this talk of like how many services you have to subscribe to get the games if you don't have cable, especially, but if you're out of market, how you get the games. And so I'm going to be very curious to see what the remaining streaming option becomes. Don't forget that there are also now, the Monday night national games are already on Prime. You
Yeah.
mentioned Prime, but that's already a thing. Monday night games in Canada are on Prime. So that's like a subcontract from Rogers. They kind of sold that out of they carved that out of their deal to get money for those games from Prime. But yeah, it seems that for fans, which is all they really care about, it's just going to add another layer of the things that they need to sign up for to get all the games. So in that sense, it's not good news for fans. It's not a great. It's the fact that RDS's number is going down means that there's probably going to be not a huge chunk, but a chunk of games that are going to be on some sort of third party or third someone else is going to take those games that's not currently part of the landscape in all likelihood, and you're going to have to sign up for that thing, whatever that thing is.
Yeah.
So in that sense, it might get a little bit more complicated to watch the Canadians next year.
I never thought we'd get to that. Back in the day, it was so easy. It was one.
Oh, back in the day, I remember when
two
games were on TQS for a long time. I remember they had like a Wednesday night game, I think, on TQS, if I'm not mistaken, that I used to watch. When I grew up, I didn't have cable, so all the games that were on RDS when I was a kid, which they didn't really have. They had some games, but they didn't have all the games, and not all the games were on TV even back when I was a kid. That's how old I am. But TQS had games, and I would look forward to those games because I could get TQS. You could get TQS like over the air, right? So it was just a regular TV station. But yeah, this is obviously very different. We see the discussions of Sportsnet Plus and this and that, and what do I subscribe to? Like, what do I have to get? It's getting more expensive, and this. So, yeah, it looks like
how many TSN regional games are there in the current agreement?
It's embarrassing. I don't even know.
Okay.
I don't even know because I don't do them all, right? So I mean, but it's there. It's actually not that hard to figure out because they have it pinned on their Twitter page. But yeah, you're wondering if there's more.
Yeah, that's before? It. Because 50 seems like an interesting number for them. I feel as though it's they're.
Well, I'm just shocked that it's lower than RDS. That's what surprises me.
No, in this case, it's going to be higher.
I mean, yeah, that's what I mean. That RDS is lower than them.
Yeah, that's it. So it's because 50 TSN games seems like an interesting chunk, whereas 45 for RDS in French seems low. So it's an interesting strategy there, but I don't know. Okay. Well, let's. Yeah, I know. I can tell that you're looking that
I'm
up
counting.
Right now.
It's 50. It's 50. They have 50 this year, so that's
okay. So it remains the same.
Yeah.
Lovely. Okay, good.
I was literally counting them on the schedule. Yeah. So they're at 50 now, so they maintain that, and so that is good news for me. I don't think it's good news for our listeners or viewers, but it's good news for me, assuming they want to keep me around. But
what do you mean it's not not good news for the viewers?
Well, just the fact that there's another. It seems obvious at this point that there's going to be another player. Yeah. There seems to be another subscription.
Okay, that's
what I mean.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
I thought what you were saying is sorry for the viewers. There's going to be more of me.
I mean, you could see it that way too, and that would be totally fair. But yeah, it's definitely gonna. They're carving out a place for something else, and I think Jeff Molson was transparent about it, and he said as much at the golf tournament. And now it's just kind of becoming more concrete that next year there's, and what's annoying about it, it's only going to be like 10 or 12 or 15, like it's going to be a very small chunk.
Yeah.
So like, if you have to subscribe to get like just like a handful of games, that becomes even more annoying. It's just so. Anyhow, we'll see what happens, but yeah, that seems to be the case.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll wrap this up. We'll be back on Monday after the Canadians have played against the Chicago Blackhawks. You will be on site for that game on Saturday, and so have a great long weekend, everybody. It's Thanksgiving weekend in Canada, so. Enjoy family and friends, and we shall talk to you again on Monday. So, bye-bye.